It was announced that the word of the year in 2016, according to the Oxford Dictionary website, is post-truth. This is an adjective that relates to circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. What does that even mean? It seems that what is true, what is factually true, matters less and less. Maybe we have to resign ourselves to not knowing for sure if anything is true. I mean, how do we know if anything is true? How do we know anything at all? I think we gain knowledge through three different ways. The first one is authority. This is what we're taught. Now, in a culture of skepticism, we value challenging authority, but we still accept the message presented by someone in a white lab coat who have been telling us for decades that 4 out of 5 dentists recommend sugarless gum for their patients who chew gum. The second way we learn things is through experience. This is through our physical senses: sight, hearing, taste, smell, touch, and more. And the third way we learn things is through our own intuition. This is when there's something unprovable that just seems right. Something like a logical axiom or a postulate would fit into this. Now, none of these ways of learning is good enough on its own. Authority can be suspect. It can be a means to further someone else's agenda or simply be wrong. Experience can be deceptive, distorted by emotions or chemicals, or merely redefined after the fact. And intuition can be untrustworthy, especially with limited information. Now, we use our rationale to put it all together and even interpret the input, resulting in conclusions about what is true about us, others, and the world around us. There's a significant problem, however. Today, much of the information that's reaching us, for example through news and social media, is pre-interpreted information. And this makes us susceptible to the agendas of others, particularly as we shut out those voices that disagree with us. What's the result? Extreme distorted conclusions that create a feedback loop that can reinforce faulty interpretations. Emotion supersedes fact, tribalism dominates truth, radicalism replaces reality. This is the post-truth world. This problem was anticipated by comedian Stephen Colbert, who coined the term truthiness, the ability for us not just to define our own truth, but the truth of others. Postmodernism reveals that anything we know is determined by context, by culture, and by our experiences. So it would seem that all truth is somehow relative, although I would question whether that could be completely true. Does that mean that we're helpless? Does that mean we're unable to know what's true or real? As followers of Jesus, we're not left helpless. Jesus promised that he has given us his Spirit, who would guide us into all truth. The Spirit reveals Jesus himself, who Scripture says is truth, truth personified. Scripture also describes Jesus as the Word, the rational reason and meaning behind everything that exists. And so we look at those three ways that we learn. We learn through authority, and for followers of Jesus, our authority is primarily Scripture. This is how we know what we know. Because the Spirit reads along with us. The author of Scripture is reading alongside and exposing meaning. We learn through intuition. Our intuition is nudged by his Spirit, his still small voice informing and guiding. We learn through experience. We experience God himself through worship, through Bible reading, through prayer, through living in community, and even through suffering, as Scripture says. 2017 may be a year in which people are floundering in uncertainty or rushing towards extreme positions with blinders on, but we can rely on God's Spirit to guide us into what we need to know. I'm going to encourage you before next week Sunday to read John chapter 16 and prayerfully submit yourself to the guidance of God's Spirit as we move into this next year engaged in God's mission for the world.